computer. Hello, loves. I am absolutely delighted. I'm actually whelmed with delight to have Alana Warlop join us for this session of Sacred Conversations. Alana is a dear, dear sister that I adore and hold in like the highest regard, who I know here from Bali. And Alana's a transpersonal psychotherapist, a trauma specialist, and modern day mystic of the most cosmic kind. So it just gives me, like I said, absolute delight to introduce you to these women in my world. So this is Alana. Hi, love.
Hi. I love it. It's like we got to read the introduction. I was like, it's a mouthful, you know.
But it's, I mean, a transpersonal psychotherapist, that's such a big piece of what you do, which we'll lead on into shortly. But I really wanted to get that piece in, you know. It is a mouthful, but it's really important that yeah, we share that that's your background.
Yeah, for sure.
So with these Sacred Conversations, I ask every inspiring woman that I know a few questions to loop and tie into, I guess, living in the way or the path of the priestess, living in tune with our cycles and our rhythms and how they connect with nature. And one of the first questions I ask is like, how well can you remember your first bleeding time, and how was that for you?
Yeah, it's so interesting thinking of this time because it's like a teleportation back to a moment that is almost got skipped in my memory. What I do remember is the relief that I got a period. I was one of the last girls in my friend group to get it, and it was sort of this source of like embarrassment. And I had no boobs, not that I have them now either, but it was just like I was like feeling not a part of the amazing thing that was meant to happen to us at that time. And I was at Marissa Lizak's house. I remember I was over at a friend's house playing. Yeah. It came and I, it's like I looked and I was like, oh, is this it? And I was just like, oh my God, it's happening. But it was so light. And I was almost like, did I make it up? It was so light and quick. And I was almost like, I'm not even sure if it really happened, but I'm going to say it happened because I just wanted that rite of passage to say that it had happened to me. And I went home from my friend's house and got in the car with my mom and told her. And she was just like, oh, honey, you're a woman now. Like this very awkward, like, you're a woman now. And then she drove me home. She said, are you tired? And I was like, like, I don't know. It just was like, I just, had kind of experienced something unbelievable. Like, your body just did something it's never done before. And she said, well, there's pads up in your room because your sister, I have an older sister. So that was it. Then it was over. And we never talked about it again, So it a lot of that was around like yearning for this rite of passage, this, recognition, and then having the whole experience be a little bit skipped. That's how I felt like, or I could sense the tension around it where she didn't know what to do. Yeah. Right. Like it made my mom, happy. It was like, oh, yay. But then there was no follow up. There was no education. There was no like, let's talk about how you're feeling or how you will feel with this. It was just nothing, like no information, which, yeah, was a lot of how my mom, like the education I got around my body and everything was just not an education.
It's interesting too. You mentioned the rites of passage, and I feel that is a piece that is in these days, these modern times, really skipped for women.
Yeah.
And it feels like the rites of passage that are celebrated now are like birth, woohoo, when we become of age, and that's in Australia 16. So that's like a
Mm-hmm.
big birthday. And then really when we are like married, 21 or married. So there's,
Yeah.
you know, these rites of passage that are so important for young women, and then for when we're going into the next phase of our lives, into, you know, the queendom, they're kind of not as celebrated. So let's bring that back. Right. um, I'm wondering if like this skipping of this rites of passage may have affected your relationship with your bleed time. You know, now that we're more aware of these things, looking back at that, do you feel that perhaps there's been thoughts or beliefs that you may have brought forward with you around that time?
Yeah, I love, again, that making that connection is really interesting. I've never thought of that before, right? And I could see that it's just like there's an energy of not having support, not understanding that there was a cyclical nature to my body, that, you know, as I carried through, I got on birth control at 18, you know, um, and my periods weren't regular. I had really, really light periods. I just didn't have a lot of, I was already experiencing hormonal imbalance, you know, at that young age. But what happened was it was just covered up. It was, again, it was just sort of this like blank, you know, not talked about, not dealt with thing until I got off birth control, like in my early or late 20s, early 30s, and lost half of my hair and realized that I had, you know, a lot of hormonal issues. But as I related to this part of my life, my sexuality, my feminine power, you know, it's just there was a blank, you know, space there. I didn't know what I didn't know, you know, and I it's sort of like I just skipped an education on the feminine nature of my being, and was so entrained to be in that masculine role of, you know, my parents were always like, be very independent, always be able to take care of yourself, be very smart, you know. So it was a lot on education and achievement. And even though I was quite alternative in my education, and always a healer and all of these things, I had always done it from this masculine framework of like achieving something, proving something, you know, still just a full, I didn't even know I was disregarding a part of me because I didn't know that part of me,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, I do. I know. And it reminds me too, like how there is often a moment or something shifts, or we meet another woman, or in some case it could be a man that opens this up for us. I'm wondering, and I know you walk the path of the priestess, like nowadays, was there
Mhm.
anything that you discovered, or was there a particular workshop or a practice that you brought into your life around this time that made you feel more connected and aware of the feminine?
Yeah. You know, right as you said that, the one thing that really just like flashed in my mind is when I went to grad school to become a transpersonal psychotherapist. Like, it was a spiritual Buddhist psychology university, and I had been coming out of a long period of very much, I don't know, being like happy, like, seemingly looking great on the outside, but was quite numb with distraction after, you know, I had had an abusive relationship. My father had passed away, um, and I was in a relationship with a man for 7 years, and just I all of a sudden felt more stuck than I had ever
Mm.
been in my life, and I knew I had to shift that, move that, and I ran away to grad school, basically. Like I didn't know how to talk about any of these things. And when I went there, day after day after day of like somatic therapy, group therapy, gestalt therapy, you're practicing, you're getting it, I'm surrounded and had live meditation teachers every week that I, got to sit with. And I started to crack. Like that numbness and that disregard of an entire, realm of the essence of my being was starting to shine through the cracks. And that looked like, a massive anxiety attack, kind of a breakdown, insomnia for months, and a full breakup with my partner. And, and I really had a breaking point. And at that same time, I was being rebuilt at the same, being held in this container. So what I can say to that, it's like, was it one practice? Many, many practices came after that, because I got really full board into embodiment after that, embodiment practices. So I went at that at many different ways. But one of the residing things that really stays with me is I had support for the first time in my life. Like I really had to ask for help. And I learned what it meant to be in the vulnerability of asking for help and receiving it. Because I didn't have it together anymore. I couldn't even try to have it together. So that beautiful breakdown point, as Brene Brown says, right? It was the time when I took a pivotal turn into being like, I have so much feeling in here. I have so much desire in here. I have so much pleasure. I have so much anger. I have feelings, and they need to move and express. And I needed to find ways to, have avenues to express those. Kundalini yoga became a huge practice, but a lot of my tantric path is when I really, really, we started like vibing deep into the goddess energy and what it means to hold the feminine and explore my sexuality, that had been really quite repressed.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd love to ask you, there's something interesting, or so many interesting things there to me. And I'm feeling the first thing to ask you a little more about is the tantric path. Many of us that hear the word tantra, we think of like being in a workshop, maybe naked, possibly with like men or women. And we also, my mind goes straight to like naked workshop, eye gazing, awkwardness. Awkward. However, right? Tantra is so much more. And I love that you have this Kundalini background, Kundalini yoga background, because for me, when I see you working in the tantric way, it's fully embodied and grounded. And I'd love, perhaps if someone's watching this for the first time, hears about Tantra, and is curious, what would be the things that they could perhaps do that's a gentle entry point into this tantric work that you're speaking of?
It's so great, because Tantra doesn't mean that you need to run into a Tantra teacher training or a weekend with yoni massage, or, things that you're like, holy Jesus, put the brakes on. Like, I just want to play with energy inside my own body. And that's how I started. And that's what Kundalini Yoga is a tantric path, right? It's white Tantra as opposed to red Tantra, which is a bit more of the working with the sexual energy. In Kundalini, the sexual energy obviously is Kundalini energy. Not obviously, maybe that's not obvious actually to many people. It's just our creative life force energy. And if we start to learn how to move that in a conscious way, intentional way through our bodies, we start to understand how we're unblocking the nervous system, the unconscious beliefs, and the energy that's stored in our somatic body. So a really easy place to start is honestly Kundalini yoga, meditations, or just starting to really start to consider, what is my own relationship with my own body? How do I feel about my yoni? How do I feel about my blood? How do I how do I relate to my sensuality? Am I ashamed of that? You know, it's like there's really good contemplation questions that you can start to sit with and just be curious about. And then, you know, if it feels like there's a call to do, you know, the red tantric or neo tantric work, you know, there's a variety of workshops that you can take. And I would always say use a hell of a lot of discernment with these teachings. This energy is extremely potent, and it can, if you try and rise this energy or play with this energy too quickly, your nervous system can blow out a little bit, and you can be with facilitators that cannot hold that space. There's so much of this path is doing your own shadow work, you know, just doing your own inner work, marrying the inner feminine with the inner masculine in this divine sacred union within you. And I know those terms can be a little far out for people when they're first starting as well, but you know, like, start to learn about that. What is your sacred inner masculine? What's the sacred inner feminine? Do you hold boundaries for yourself? You know, do you stand in what's true for you rather than people pleasing? Where do you leak energy? Right, this is the real tantric path when we actually are working on these concepts and things, in my opinion anyway. And then we can start to play with our sexual energy. And then we can look at, like, how does that play out in relationship, in my relationship to my friends, my girlfriends? Do I flirt with life? You know, and then I can move it into kind of relating in a sexual, more intimate way. Right.
I love that. Do I flirt with life? And yeah, that's such a beautiful way to be. And I noticed that in you and other women that are in my world that are Kundalini Yoga backgrounds or tantric backgrounds of whether it be white or red, or neo tantra. There's this just joy of life, of everything. And we talk about, like, for women, increasing their radiance is really true, like that joy, that connection to seeing the possibility of joy in every single moment. And I really would love to thank you for gifting me that, because whenever I see you, I just feel like so much joy. And there's another piece in there. I know we could talk about these things forever, but I want to talk about Radiance Rising. As you know, for anyone that may have watched this conversation so far, Alana has this incredible, incredible opportunity to work with her in a small group, and it spans over 5 months. So it's really deep, and the places that you can go in that container for, you know, that amount of time are quite miraculous. And I'd love for you to share a little bit how women could work with you in this way. And I know that these things like tantric practices that you share in your course too. So maybe you could speak.
Yeah. So basically what I did was, you know, take my life's work as a psychotherapist, as a trauma specialist, as someone who has studied mysticism and spirituality since the age of 15. You know, I kind of combine that. And what I saw time and time again as a therapist is that you cannot build a foundation of growth and evolution on thought-based, you know, like trying to think your way into a new life, right? There's a lot of misperception with, if we just analyze ourselves enough, if we just do thought change, if I'm just mantraing myself to death, you know, or finding the limiting belief all the time, but then not actually having the emotion and sensation move through your body in a sacred conscious way, then the healing just doesn't take root. It might alleviate a little bit, but you can do really deep, lifelong healing if you understand these principles of how to work with your nervous system, how to ride sensation, how to separate yourself from the stories of the perceived critical mind. And then when we have that foundation, then we start to explore this beautiful sacred energy and what does it mean to be feminine to you, not our cultural conditioned way of seeing the feminine, because these are just frequencies within us. So we explore these frequencies through energy, through tantric practices, through meditations, through breath work, right? Through altering our state into, where the mind doesn't have so much grip and control. And I guide you in this process, which is spacious, and there's an ability for us to just kind of be with what arises. But the program that you get is a succinct 5-month development journey around this evolution of who you are. And it starts with that basic, how do we actually embody our healing, embody safety and security at the deepest core level, so that we can then, only from then, do we get to then expand and play and open our bodies and then invite in these incredible friendships and relationships and find this sensual way of being in life, so that no matter what's happening around you, you can accept, you can enjoy, you can find the sacredness in all that comes to you, right? And this is what it means to be sovereign. This is where we need to be as women right now, back in the way that we are leaders. When we're doing this, it doesn't matter if you're actually leading anybody, but we're meant to be in that place, and that's why that priestess archetype comes, because she's an alchemist of energy, right? She harnesses the mundane, she harnesses the sacred, and she's connected in a channel every day, no matter what she's doing, if it's ceremony or if it's the dishes or if it's parenting or if it's being on the computer all day. We're in this place of connection to the divine source, which is us. So
Wow.
the program encapsulates all of that in 5 months with audio practices, videos, and then just all of our weekly calls, which are really experiential and fun. And I'll have some guest speakers. Hopefully Rebecca will be one of them. And yeah, and we just have a sisterhood, and we form that tribe, which is ultimately where we're going in the collective. So if we're not creating these collectives, then it's we're kind of almost falling back into the old paradigm way. I used to work alone all the time and be like, oh, I'm all about women and the divine feminine, yet I wouldn't ask for help, and I would did everything by myself.
Oh,
And it was
that's such a big piece, isn't it? Right?
yeah,
Of
it's such a phone.
not feeling that we are the warriors. We are, all for the divine, all for supporting other women and doing this work. But yet, how often are we oh my God, feel like we're overwhelmed because we're doing everything ourselves. That's such an important thing to allow other women to come in to help us and to open up to the support of other women, so that we can then support other women in doing the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Alana, I just got a full shiver at that transmission. And that was 3 minutes or 5 minutes to spend 5 months with you. If it's anything like that, wow. How amazing. And there you also mentioned the collective, and there's something I'd love to share with the women watching this too, about the Creatrix Collective, this piece that you brought in. Honestly, I think it's one of the most generous, supportive, nurturing spaces that started off as I think a Facebook group, and it just seemed to grow and grow. And Alana then gave her time and her energy and her love and full presence in creating this online retreat, in a way. It felt bigger than a retreat, but I can only think of that word right now. It's like a symposium. It was like the retreat of all retreats. of like the most incredible women, and you hosted that and brought that together, and I think, you know, I really want to celebrate you in that, and suggest that if anybody is curious to know a little more about who you are and what you really stand for, um, can people still jump in on that Facebook group, or is it like what's
No, I just decided I'm going to leave it open. I ran it as an online retreat. We had, you know, 500 women sign up, and then I'm like, this is just a great community space. So we're leaving it open, and if anybody wants to join, they just ask to join the group, and then you know, you just can say where you heard about it was Rebecca's sacred conversation, and I'll just happy to let you into the group, and
yeah, thank
maybe we'll
you.
put a link to that or something. So yeah, it's a great way to have sessions from me and sessions from other like phenomenal facilitators that also donated their time and energy, and we gave all these incredible ceremonies. Yeah, it's a really cool, a
Yeah,
cool group of women. Yeah,
really, really cool. And
really.
that's the thing. It was it wasn't just like online presentations or workshops. Every single piece was a ceremony in itself, and I think
Yeah,
that's what, if anybody jumps on and has a look, and I really, you know, I pray that you do, because it's epic, is that you're going to get, yeah, some of the most incredible facilitators that hold ceremony, and they live in these ways where every moment is an opportunity to find joy.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you, Alana.
Yeah.
So when does Radiance Rising start? If anybody's really feeling the yes right now for that.
Yeah. Anyone wants to know more? I'm probably in about a week or 2 weeks. We begin. So about mid-February we begin, and it's yeah. I love to just even explore the conversation. If there's any inkling inside your body, it's like there's so many women that I've worked with that are like, oh, I want to know. Yes. And then they're like, but I can't because of the thing, you know, they come up with the things, and then they end up joining somehow, some way the universe puts it together. So if it's meant to be, it will be, and we find a way. Right. So I'm happy to chat with anybody about it.
Thank you, Beauty. I just feel like so much joy in my body right now, and feel connected, um, deeply to like the honoring of the sisterhood that you offer as well. And yeah, I really appreciate this moment. And there's something that I would love to share that I also love about you. It's like the Alana moment is something that you said is like, girl, I could pray all day. And what I also notice about you is that just as you could pray all day, I think you could play all day. And that is like living at, like for me, putting those two things together, it's like you can hold everything in such reverence, but having like so much fun with it. To me, that's like Tantra, right? Am I right?
Right.
Is that like living
Totally.
a fully balanced, tantric, joyful, juicy, embodied feminine life? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You emanate that as well. Get to do that together, which is so fun.
I know. So blessed. So I'm going to leave the recording there. I feel like that is so juicy. And yeah, again, thank you for your generosity. And I'm going to press stop right now.
Okay.
There we go.